family, and welcome to another episode of Role Model Experts Cafe. I'm your host, Dr. L, the Parent Whisperer, and today with me I have a very special guest, Miss Jessica Rosin. And she is amazing. She's been on my summit before, and I thought that I should have her tell you a little bit more about herself and not just so specific about the talk that she had on the summit, and share her expertise, her knowledge, and passion. So, Jessica, welcome to the show. I really appreciate you carving time out of your busy schedule to be able to be here. Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got to do what you do, and your passion, basically.
Yeah, so great to be here. Thanks so much. So I'm a registered psychologist. I'm a mother of three. I'm in an intimate relationship myself, and I'm the relationship weaver. And so for me, I have my own private practice. I do a lot of work with individuals and couples. And one of my biggest passions that I've really branched into is specializing in working with relationships and just the real art of weaving relationships. And kind of when you have two unique independent individuals and bridging them together. And I encounter people and couples at all stages of their relationship journey, either kind of in the beginning, in the middle, where things are kind of rocky or disconnected, other couples where it's really feeling broken and pretty much kind of done. And a lot of people come to me even as a last resort of, okay, what do I do? And so, and a lot of couples who are, without kids, and maybe even a lot more couples that have kids themselves. So it's kind of a big kind of variety of people.
Okay. So how did you decide to kind of move online and do the stuff that you do nowadays?
I think a big part of it is initially the branching out. I have a really full private practice, and at the same time that you only have so much time. There's only so much availability with that. So moving online just really has allowed me to branch a lot more. And over the last few years, I branched more into groups as well, just to be able to kind of maximize the amount of contact that I have with people and deliver a lot of the message that I have and a lot of my own learnings that I've uncovered with my own personal journey, but also with the clients that I've been working with. So it's just been allowed a greater reach of, yeah.
So during your time in practice and seeing the patients, what would you say that seems to be your core message? Not necessarily just the training, but what you see to resurface over and over again that resonates with you and is you're very passionate about in that sense.
Wow, that's a big question. There's a lot of pieces to that. As you were asking that, one of the biggest things that came to me is something about relationship spark. I think a lot of people, they enter into a relationship and there might be some sort of sparks or whatever's happening, which means an attraction, something that's bringing us together on different levels. And maybe not too soon after, then things start to go into the everyday life. People go into autopilot and relationships really start to wane. And I know for myself, that's something that I really experienced after 10 years of marriage, where I, just kind of noticed that I was kind of going through the motion survival mode. And there was like this waking up experience to realizing, like, what am I really doing? Who am I really with? Who am I really? And what do I really want? What do I want about life? But what do I want out of relationship? And so, when I work with people, I'm always curious to know about the spark, their own inner spark within them as individuals, but also like what's the spark in their relationship? And that usually kind of opens up like everything when we kind of hone in on that.
All right. So is that spark the thing that our eyes met across the street, or is it a spark as in, wow, I really liked how he handled something, or some specific thing that might not even be apparent to somebody else? Have you seen any consistency in what that spark is?
And what the spark, the only thing I can say about it, because it's one of those things when we're talking about love, where it's like, how do we really define this? The spark's kind of a similar thing in that way, where I think for a lot of people, there is almost like a difficult to describe energetic
Hmm.
sort of spark that happens.
Right.
And maybe even to put it really simply, it's like what brings you more fully alive
Okay.
within yourself. And that can be, when I'm working with couples, that can just be so many different things. It could be, when he touches my hand, when he brings me my coffee, when she says something nice to me, when we're kind of connecting physically. We notice there's like more of a spark, kind of an energetic charge that's happening, and there's some sort of emotional charge that happens different than our everyday life, what we're doing all the time.
Right. So
Hmm.
over the years, you mentioned like 10 years into it, for instance. Over the years, does that spark become the reuniting factor, or is that something that kind of wanes and dissipates away based on what you have heard?
It's both, right? So the spark can wane and kind of be like, where is that? There is no spark.
Hmm.
To it can be when we find that. When we remember it, there's two things. When we remember it, it's like, yeah, what did bring us together? And then other times when we find it. Sometimes that spark that brought two people together really is something that wasn't sustained or isn't sustainable. Like it's just not there anymore.
Right.
And so two people can find themselves actually going like, you know what, we really didn't have much of a spark. We came
Okay.
together for our needs, for, financial needs, or it made me feel safe and secure
Mhm.
versus having any sort of that spark charge.
All
And
right.
so couples, when that's the case, they never really had it, then it's about, okay, what can we discover or discover now?
Right. Okay. So whether you have lost it or you can't find it or you have to redefine it, um, what do you
Yeah.
typically see as the challenge for people that come to you in that regard, basically, in regards to the spark itself? Redefining is one thing, redefining yourself is one thing, but finding the spark or refinding it or redefining the spark, that's a separate thing. So do you see challenges
Hmm.
in that aspect when it comes to couples?
The biggest challenge, if we're going to put it into maybe even just two categories to simplify it, it's like either the spark was there or it never was.
Okay.
And the most challenging situations is when two people find that it actually really never was there.
Hmm.
I would say that would be the most challenging situation because then, because the spark is really what kind of keeps is the glue. It's what
Right.
keeps two people together when other things start to fade off, when other needs-based sorts of
Right.
activities aren't there anymore. So if that's not there, people then really question, well, should we even be together then?
So I guess my logical next question, I don't know if it's logical or not, we're talking about relationships, would be what would be your suggestion and your tips for moving forward? How do you decide whether we should be together or where we should not be together? And if we should be together, how do you move forward?
No, that is a really logical question, and that's really what people end up encountering is kind of stepping into that space. And I would say, and that's a big part of the work that I do as well, is it connects us into we need to look at ourselves as individuals, and
Hmm.
we go into more of a self-discovery process. Because a lot of people at that point, at the same time, simultaneously find that they actually don't really know a lot about themselves, even. They kind of like tripped into and walked into this relationship, continued on with life, and this is the time when now everything's being questioned and re examined, including what brought me into this relationship, who am I really, what does bring me more fully alive. So the first step is let's each individually look at ourselves and get to know ourselves, get to know what we really need, what we really want. And then that's when we can start to look at our relationship purpose. Do we match up together with what we need and what we want?
Got it. Got it. Okay. So what would be the first thing to do for couples if they find themselves in that situation?
Again, I would say it would start to look at our individual. our individual stuff, look at ourselves and discover that more. And so for me, I break it into I call it the relationship trifecta. And so the three phases of that is awareness, empowerment, and an embodiment.
Mm,
And so with that, it's going to be we need to become more aware of ourselves and become more aware of our relationship, where it's been and where it's at right now. Like really get a sense of where it's at right now, because it's so easy for us to think that things are a certain way or think the other person likes or doesn't like certain things. Like we just kind of go along with stuff. And now really want to grow aware of the actual situation for ourselves and our relationship.
right. I could imagine that being in that kind of a situation, people really have to rediscover and rebuild their relationships, because you also grow over time, right? So who you were, say, in your 20s and who you are in your 30s or 40s, it's a completely different person. And your goals might change, your behavior and how you view the world and life in general can change. So, all right. So in doing so, I guess there are certain steps and processes that go through. How long do you think this process should take for people to kind of discover this about themselves and their relationship? Is this something that can happen very abruptly, or is this something that might take years?
Well, it's one of those things, again, we're talking about relationships. Um, it varies. I would say it doesn't happen abruptly. For sure, that's not going to happen. It is a process, and it is a lifetime process overall. But when it comes to kind of some of these like critical phases for a lot of people feeling lost and limbo, confused, like when you're kind of in that space, I could say within like a good few weeks. I mean, I have a 9-week program that I have where we have like steps and phases throughout every week that kind of takes people through this process of their own self discovery as well as the relationship discovery along the way.
Cool.
And so, within the 9 weeks, it covers like quite a bit where people, again, they become more aware. They have different exercises and strategies to use to become more empowered for themselves, but also together. And then to be able to live this more into their everyday life, like embody this and express this with each other.
Okay. And in your experience, is this something that you do once, or is this something that seems to happen every few years that we have to go back and regroup and find our spark again?
It depends on how you go about it. Easily, it could be one of those things that a person like does every few years to kind of check in again, or we're kind of finding that we have changed in different ways, or at least one of the two have changed, so we got to look at that again. But if you acquire some of these tools and resources and maintain them, it's almost like anything like a fitness program, eating, whichever it is. It's like if you maintain some of these ways of tuning into yourself and tuning into your relationship, communicating in certain ways so that it's not a mystery where all of a sudden out of nowhere we're like, oh, we're not happy or something's wrong. Instead, it's just, gradually along the way, we can identify them when they're small things that are coming up as opposed to now it's grown into like 20 things that make one big thing.
In your experience, have you seen a difference in the development and people going through this process between men and women?
Sorry, difference between men and women?
Yeah.
Um, you know, I'm I want to almost say, not too much of a difference. There's different things that a man, I find generally men will come with as more of like a pattern, individual or relationship pattern,
Right, right.
different from a female. But the journey itself, just as being human beings, the process itself is pretty similar. We have to tune into ourselves in similar ways along the way.
Got it. Got it. And does one have more difficulty with the process than the other? Or is it pretty similar? That's whether it's challenges, whether it's being able to go through that process. Are men more stubborn? Are women more willing? Or is it pretty standard across the board?
It varies. Like if I want to say the one thing that does come up, and two things I want to say. Men definitely, people have this a lot of ideas that men, for example, don't engage in counseling too much, or they don't go through their own kind of self journeys as often as women. And in my case, I really work with like equal number. I don't work with more women than with men. It seems like men and women are quite similar when they come in with stuff when it comes with relationships and what they're going through. Men do have to break through a little bit of the social learnings that have happened, especially when it comes to emotions,
Hmm. Right.
because men have been, stereotypically kind of more taught that, to not really express and tune in as much as women. Whereas women, generally, they have had a little bit more practice with that. But they, on their end, they have a little bit more to work with and on kind of working with it now and being able to manage it in a way so that it actually informs them in healthy ways.
Got it. Awesome. Awesome. Fun stuff. I like it.
Mhm.
I can see how you have fun with
Yes.
your work. So this is
Oh, yes.
awesome. So how can people tell find out more about you and what you do? Tell us a little bit more about your work, your business, and the programs that you have, and how people can find you.
So I believe that we have the links that are going to go out for everyone. I am on social media. I have a YouTube channel, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and like I said, I do periodically master classes or one-day workshops, and those dates kind of change throughout the year. And always have a regular 9-week program. It's called the Relationship Roadmap, and people can come into this as individuals, or they can come into it as couples and be able to work through the process together.
Got it.
And so there's a link there for the Relationship Roadmap program. I also have a relationship archetype assessment that is free, and so people can have access to that, and they
Awesome.
can get a snapshot of getting to know a little bit more about their own relationship patterns and the way that they show up and how they're experiencing themselves. And usually when people are doing the assessment, they like to get their partner to do it, or at least they imagine how their partner would be answering some of the questions too. And so it can be a lot of fun and at the same time quite informative. And so I really enjoy it, when people come to me and they have a sense of some of their relationship archetype assessments, for us to kind of now go, okay, we got some awareness going on. What do we want to do with this now?
Got it. Awesome. Awesome. I love it. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure that we put all the links in the description box. So guys, be sure to go down there and check, do that test. It sounds a lot of fun. I think I'm going to go ahead and do it myself as well. So thank you, Jessica, for being here. And any final words of wisdom before we part?
Again, I think that's really what it comes down to is, their relationships can be really difficult, but when we really tune into the things that bring us more fully alive within ourselves and our relationship, things become a lot less complicated. And experiencing that relationship that you really desire and you really want, it is possible. I know a lot of people really question that, especially when they're struggling a lot or they never really had some experiences in the relationships that are successful. It really is. So, yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. Guys, if you haven't subscribed already, subscribe to the channel so you can see all the experts that come here. Thank you again, Jessica, for being here. Thank you guys for being here and watching this. And we look forward to seeing you guys in future episodes. And I look forward to working with you further, Jessica. Cheers, guys.
Okay, thank you.